Hello everyone and welcome. Do you want to know if a servant is good enough to spend your hard-earned quartz on? Great, you're in the right place. Welcome to the FGO Gacha Guide. Today our topic servant is Fujiwara no Kaoruko, aka Murasaki Shikibu. We shall be covering all of the points you see on screen, but before we go into that, fun fact with Lady Murasaki, she is the writer of one of the most prolific pieces of Japanese literature, The Tale of Genji, Genji no Monogatari. It was written in the early 1000s, so it is widely known as one of the world's first novels and is still widely recognized as a very well-written story over 1,000 years later. So, moving on to my personal opinion. In my opinion, Murasaki Shikibu is quite good. She is one of the stronger damage-dealing casters out there, if you are facing demonic enemies especially. She has good skills, and she has pretty good looping potential with her MP. If you're in need of an AoE damage-dealing caster in general, Murasaki is definitely one of the better choices out there for you. So let's see why, starting with her stats. Murasaki is a 5-star caster class servant, meaning she is strong against assassins and weak to riders. She has 11,374 attack at level 90. This is around the middle across all 5-star servants, while her HP at level 90 is 12,833, which is pretty darn low for a 5-star health value. In fact, it's around the bottom 20 of all 5 stars. Moving on to hidden stats. Her NP gain per hit is 0.45%. This is a little bit below average, unfortunately, so not the greatest in the world. As for her cards, she has 4 hits on her quick cards, 4 hits on her arts cards, 4 hits on her buster cards, and 5 hits on her extra card. These are very good hit counts overall. Above average on a couple of them even. Her star weight, aka how much priority she has to get critical stars for her cards over other servants, is a measly 51. This is pretty darn low, unfortunately, as she is a main damage dealer on your team, but it is in line with what most casters have, so it's not particularly surprising. Her star creation rate is 10.7%. Again, pretty much on the average side. Overall, her stats come out to be relatively average, maybe a little bit below average in general. Now, looking at her deck in Noble Phantasm, she has 2 arts cards, 2 quick cards, and 1 buster card, a non-standard 2-1-2 deck focusing on an extra quick over a buster. Her Noble Phantasm, Genji Monogatari, Aoi Mononoke. The Tale of Genji is an AoE Arts Noble Phantasm that deals damage to all enemies, hitting them 6 times each, inflicts the buff block status to all enemies for 1 turn, and deals extra damage to demonic enemies between 150 and 200% based on your overcharge. This is a very simple NP. It deals damage, it deals more damage to demons, and it has a nice little bonus of buff blocking for some utility. It's pretty decent. As long as you hit demonic enemies, it does pretty darn good damage. Hitting non-demonic enemies means that her MP will honestly do relatively low damage. It's going to be unimpressive. So for now, I would definitely focus on her specialty in demonic enemies, unless of course you're going to support her very hard with something like a double Tamamo setup. Next we have her passives. Very simple. She has Territory Creation C+, and Item Construction C. So she gains 7% bonus arts performance and 6% bonus debuff success rate. Honestly, they're okay. They're not amazing. The Territory Creation being a lower rank means that she does lose out on a couple percent for arts, but it helps with her MP and her two of her cards on top of it. So it's nice to have. Now moving on to her skills, which are going to be a little bit more exciting. We first off have Song of the Poet. This reduces all enemies' defense for 3 turns between 20 and 30%, increases the party's damage against demonic enemies for 3 turns between 20 and 30%, on a 6-turn cooldown, so effective 3-turn cooldown. This is a pretty darn good skill. It's quite good even. Especially if you're against demonic foes, obviously. It gives a massive increase in the damage that you and your party will deal to them. Now, the defense can be resisted by enemies, but what can't be resisted is buffing your team. So, no matter what, if you're against demonic enemies, you will at least gain 30% more damage against them. Now, for her second skill, she has Witchcraft, which has a 60 to 80% chance to seal one enemy's MP for one turn, charges her own MP between 20 to 30% based on level, and increases her own MP damage for 3 turns between 10 and 20%. This is another good skill. It is unfortunate you cannot rely on the NP seal, as 80% at the best does not guarantee it, but having just the NP charge and NP damage would make it a pretty good skill by itself, so think of it like a little bonus if it goes off, and try not to rely on it or mix it into your plans when playing. Simple as that for the NP seal. And finally, her third skill, Diary of Murasaki Shikibu. This reduces the party's damage taken by 500 to 1,000 for 3 attacks for 3 turns, grants the party debuff immunity 1 time for 3 turns, and increases the party's debuff removal resistance by 100% 1 time for 3 turns. This is a pretty decent utility skill. It provides a good mix of defensive buffs to keep your party healthy, and buffs to keep their buffs up with the utility. It's not amazing, but there aren't a whole lot of units in the game that will increase the whole party's buff removal resistance. So this is very good if you're against if you're against an opponent that can remove your buffs, like say Amakusa Shiro as a heavy enemy. You can bring Murasaki Shikibu as at least a semi-support specifically for this skill. Honestly, with these skills and her MP, you can see Murasaki's good at one thing, and that's killing demonic enemies. She is best placed against groups of demonic enemies where she will easily just slash right through them. Against non-demonic enemies, she doesn't have the greatest damage. She has a nice 30% defense and 20% MP damage up, but aside from that, her damage gain is very specialized for those demonic enemies. So if you're against normal enemies, she'll honestly feel like she's kind of underperforming if you want to compare her to certain other servants. So sticking her with her niche will make her feel strong. Having her go against it will make her feel kind of lacking. So what materials do we need for these skills? It's actually not that bad. Murasaki's not very expensive overall. For each skill, she requires 9 black beast grease, 15 forbidden pages, 24 ancient bells, and 30 mirrors. I'm sorry, 10 mirrors. Getting ahead of myself. 10 Tsukumo mirrors. Meaning to max her, we will need 27 black beast grease, 45 pages, 72 bells, and 30 mirrors. There's where the 30 mirrors comes in. Honestly, most of these you've had time to farm up if you've been playing the game. If you're relatively new, it doesn't matter what the materials are, you'll have trouble. If you've been rolling a lot of servants lately, though, you may have some trouble scrounging up some Ancient Bells of Tranquility, as a lot of the recent servants that have come out have needed them. Almost every single one. Otherwise, this is pretty easy to fulfill, I would say. So, how does Murasaki Shikibu stack up against her competition? As a 5-star damage-dealing AoE caster, her main competition comes down to Anastasia, Nero Caster, Scheherazade, and Da Vinci. I believe Murasaki's on the upper end of these characters overall. At the moment, I would say Nero Caster is probably the number 1, the apex predator, but in the future, when Castoria comes out and buffs all the arts units out there, she's going to fall down a little bit, and I believe Murasaki and Anastasia are going to overtake her, with Anastasia being the new champion and Murasaki a close second, unless the opponents are demonic, in which case Murasaki is, of course, the preferred choice. So, at the moment, she's still top 3. She'll be in a better top 3 in about a year and a half. So an investment in her now is an investment in the future. Now, if you have rolled for her, or if you're going to roll for her, what skill should you prioritize in leveling? Very simple. As always, I suggest leveling up the skill with an MP charge, that is her second skill, as her first priority. Because having better MP charge increases your reach, increases the amount of NP that you can fire off, and all that good stuff. Next, I would focus on her first skill. This is kind of on the same tier as her second skill. They're both pretty similar to each other. They're both extremely good. Her first skill scales extremely well, greatly increasing the amount of damage that she can deal against demonic enemies, and groups of demonic enemies especially. So it's a really great idea to level up her first skill to maximum as well. As for her third skill, it does not scale very well. It's nice to have. It's nice to have on a lower cooldown and everything, but all it scales is the damage taken, is the flat damage reduction. And that's nice and all, but a flat damage reduction of 1,000 is honestly not that much in challenge fights where it's going to actually matter. The nice thing about it is the utility it brings, and with the utility, none of it scales. So all you really have to do is have the skill. You can leave that at a lower level, or level it up last if you want to level it up at all. Now, moving on to what to equip craft essence-wise for her. Murasaki Shikibu is an arts damage dealer, mainly focusing on using her NP. So let's focus on things such as NP charge, arts damage, NP damage generation, that kind of stuff. The best event CEs, aka the ones you're going to have max limit broken, in my opinion, are Painting Summer and Dive to Blue, which are both about the same tier as each other. Both of them give a 50% starting NP charge and 10% arts performance up. The difference is Painting Summer will give you 10% more NP generation, while Dive to Blue will give you 10% more NP damage. So it's a choice between easier looping and better damage dealing. Neither one is necessarily better than the other unless you need that extra reach to get your loop off. Then Painting Summer is the winner, which is why I think Painting Summer is the best one overall. And the other big CE that I would recommend, if you have it, is Magical Girl of Sapphire. It provides you a 40 or 50% max limit broken starting MP charge and 25 or 30% max limit broken increased MP generation to make looping much, much easier. Because, as we went through before with her hidden stats, Murasaki Shikibu's NP gain on hit is a little low, so having that extra MP generation on hit is very helpful. Now let's see what servants we should group Murasaki with. Oh look, it's Waver! Hi Waver! He provides 50% MP charge, crit damage up, defense up, and attack up. It's really hard to pass up on him, so he's pretty much on every list ever forever. Now next up, our current premier arts supporter, Tamamo Namai. Tamamo provides 3 turns of 50% arts up, 3 turns of 30% MP damage up, both of which Murasaki greatly benefits from. Healing NP generation and cooldown reduction via her MP for those longer fights. They're all fantastic, so Tamamo is, of course, the best support you can bring with her for the time being. Next up, we have Nero Bride, who will provide 45% more MP generation for 3 turns for an ally, along with 3 turns of 40% attack up. She's there for additional looping help in case you need more MP generation to get that loop going, along with a nice little damage boost. And finally, we have Paracelsus von Hohenheim, who provides 20% arts up for 3 turns and 50% MP rate up for 3 turns as kind of a budget Nero Bride support. If you don't have her available for yourself, everyone's got the 3-star boy available. But wait, Thor, who's this fine young lass down here? Oh, why, that's Castoria. She comes out 1.5 years. When she comes out, every arts servant ever is paired with her for the rest of their lives. They get married to her. She has a harem of arts servants. By which I mean she is the best arts supporter in the game once she comes out, bar none. Tamamo is the only one that can even come close to competing, and Tamamo mainly competes due to her cooldown reduction on her NP and the healing and MP generation on it. Otherwise, if you're just farming, Castoria is better. If you're doing challenge fights and don't need Tamamo's cooldown reduction, Castoria is better. Castoria is better. Castoria is better. All right, glad we got through that. Too long didn't watch here. Very simply, this is a good servant to roll for. Murasaki Shikibu is quite strong. One of the stronger AoE casters out there. She's an absolutely amazing destroyer of demonic enemies. She's good in farming comps, she's decent in challenge comps. Her only real weakness comes down to her NP generation being a little less than great, so it can be harder to loop with her than some of her competition. But if you do need a good reason to roll for her, I've got a great one for you right here. Big Titty Librarian Mommy. Yes, if you want big mommy milkies in your life, then roll for Murasaki Shikibu. If you enjoyed this video, check out my Twitch channel and all that stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. And the artist for this is right there in the bottom left. Mr. Una Dondon. give them support on Twitter. I will see you guys later, and thanks for watching the Gacha Guide.